Welcome, everyone, to Stay in Your Lane. I'm your host today, John Mahle, brought to you by Triple T Transport. Two really fun, enjoyable gentlemen with us today. Bob Costello, Senior Vice President, ATA. Bob, you've had your hand in many things for many years, but Chief Economist, I think, is where most people know you. I think I saw you the first time, maybe, I don't know, I'm guessing around 20 to 25 years ago at a conference.
You're dating us. Come on.
Us. I know I'm old. Joe Lombardo today with us, Iggy Avenue and Associates, number one podcast contributor. Joe, welcome back. We've missed you for a while. We're happy to have you back. Bob also. Just want to say thanks, guys, for joining us today. I know everybody expects the crystal ball. Joe and I have some questions for you. Bob, I think, Joe, I'm going to let you fire away with your first question, and then we'll go from there, if that's okay with you, Joe.
Okay, sure. Good morning, Bob. Uh, I guess my question would be with regards to tariffs. How much of your time now is spent in tariff analysis and fielding questions from your members about impact of tariffs? And I know you don't have a crystal ball to know what's going on, but it seems like there's a lot of tariff chaos out there.
Well, thanks, Joe. I think you summarized it well. Tariff chaos. That would be a good way of putting it. I put it a little differently when I speak to my members and to the industry. I'm like, the tariff situation is confusing and complicated, right? I mean, if you think about it, there's all different. I mean, they're using what's called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, tariffs. We're using Section 232, which is around national security, 232 tariffs, and Section 301 tariffs, which are generally put on products from specific countries that are considered unfair trade practices. So you add it all up, we have so many different types of tariffs at different levels and so forth. I mean, we've seen the average effective tariff rate go from prior to the president's inauguration day, less than 2.5% in the US, to nearly 30% from late April through, or I'm sorry, late March through late April. Now we're at 15.6%. And while that's a lot lower than close to 30%, it's 550% more than where we were prior to the president's inauguration. So this has got, people trying to beat tariffs, and then so it causes this, swing up with hurry up, get stuff in, and then, oh, now let's not bring anything in, and then, oh, it's down again, and it may go back up. Let's get it in, and it's just causing a lot of uncertainty, a lot of issues with freight and all. But yes, I do tariff policy. I deal with the government on that, and it's taking up a lot of my time.
Wow.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, Joe. Bob, I'm going to hit you with one because I think the statement that I saw in Transport Topics said you've talked to a lot of folks that said that this is the worst freight recession they've ever seen. And I would agree with that. And I would say partly because of the uncertainty and partly because of coming off of COVID. I think the COVID economy was, I think, unreal for most everyone.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's similar, right? But to different degrees of what we're seeing with tariffs, right? We had this pull forward of all this freight early in COVID, as people couldn't travel, do experiences generally, and then we switched all the way over. Remember, revenge travel and all these concerts and so forth. But it's interesting. I was like, well, I know volumes did not fall as much this past cycle as they did during the Great Recession. But the reason why I think so many in our industry that have been around a long time, like the three of us, have said this is not the amount that it fell, but the duration. Okay. So normally it's like ripping off the Band-Aid. You see volumes fall, but it's over in a year, a year right? Maybe a little bit
18
more than
months?
right. It's over quickly, relatively quickly.
Right.
This was a nearly, it was definitely over 2 years and probably more like 2.5 years. So volumes were down, rates were down significantly, and actually rates, unlike volumes weren't down as much as we've seen in past cycles, but rates were. Now, of course, they went up a lot during the pandemic, right? But then you add this other element that I think is the real sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, and that is volumes down, rates down, but costs up. And that is the killer. That's why so many folks are saying this is the worst I've ever seen. Now, I was getting more optimistic, right? I thought, demand would come up a little bit, supply would whittle away a little bit, and things were going to get better this year. We can talk more about that and what I see going on now. But yes, I think in a nutshell, that's why people that I have been in this industry a long time, like the three of us, have said this is the worst we've ever seen.
I would say the duration is definitely, I think you hit the nail on the head with that statement. Everyone wants to know when's it going to get better. And to your point, with all of the I would say turmoil and chaos and uncertainty, we're seeing a lot of everybody's holding serve.
Hmm.
After the past 2.5, 3 years, they're holding serve to wait and see, which I would say I would say that's what the Fed's doing on interest rates. Waiting to see, and no one wants to be the first one steps out on the plank because right now it can be quickly terminal. We've seen a lot of carriers go out of business. We've seen a lot of brokerages go out of business, and I expect that to continue. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, I agree. I think so. If we get back to what I was saying earlier, prior to January 20th, my baseline forecast was a little bit of increase in demand, a continued, little whittling away of supply, and at
Purge.
some point this year, the industry was going to be in a different place because of that.
Yep.
Now, um, the timing is difficult, but to determine. But in general, I think demand is not going to increase, right? Demand at best is flat, probably falls, but as a result, you will see a sharper, not necessarily sharp, but a sharper than it anticipated before, continued decrease in industry supply. And ironically, at some point in the future, we're probably close to where I thought we would be anyway, but a very different road of getting there, right? Because we're not getting there in a fashion where demand is improving. I
Mm-hmm.
think demand is not going to improve. I think that demand is at best going to be flat at best. But that is going to put continued pressure on these marginal fleets.
Yep.
Listen, we all know there are small, medium, and maybe even a little bit bigger than medium fleets that have only been making interest-only payments on trucks, that are deferring a lot of maintenance, and eventually that catches up with you.
Right.
I mean, we all know this in our homes, right? If somebody comes and says, "Yeah, this your furnace isn't looking so good, or your AC unit's not looking so good," and you're like, "Well, just let's just let it go. Let's see where eventually then
Throw
I'll."
some stop leak in it and some more Freon.
Yeah,
Let's try and make
exactly.
it.
Eventually, that's not a good place to be, right? And so I think it's kind of similar in the industry. We can also later talk about shadow capacity that I think, as we've been dealing with, that I think is going to improve, and so forth. But that's generally where I think we're going to be. The hard part is, and this is why, I've never done this in 27 years of doing this. I've never said this forecast is as good as it is on this specific day. I've never done that. I am doing that. Okay? I am like, this forecast is for today. All right, and it can change tomorrow. It can change this afternoon, right? So there's a lot. So the timing of all of this, it's not a cop out. It is
Reality.
right. I mean, listen, if all of a sudden the president declares victory on trade deals and tariffs, and the effective tariff rate falls back down to close to where we were, things can all of a sudden demand could get better, right? And improve. If all of a sudden he says, no, I'm mad that we didn't get any of these trade deals or not, very few of them, and I'm jacking up tariffs again and more, demand could get much worse. We also have, it's going through the legal process. There's been multiple lawsuits on these tariffs. And so there's a lot of, uncertainty around it, and therefore it makes forecasting very difficult.
No, I would agree with you 100%. If you'd asked me in January, I would have said, look, first 6 months are going to be tough. Q3, we're going to see an uptick. Q4, we're going to be positive from a I would say almost an emotional perspective, looking forward to 2026. To what would be to come. Now, I think looking at where we are, what all's transpired, to your point, all of the lawsuits. I think that slows momentum either way, whether you agree with it or whether you don't. I think those things slow and create more angst and more conservative behavior from everyone in the industry, whether you're shippers that were wanting to do large projects have put them on hold, and everybody's holding serve. The capacity situation, I still think there's more capacity that's going to leave the market on the second half of this year, and some of it maybe needs to. One thing I'm going to switch over to is, I saw the English speaking driver requirements being enforced again. I don't necessarily know that in this market that makes a big impact that we would see if it were an upticked market. So some of this stuff, I think it's going to be wait a while longer, because you may not feel it at the level you would feel it if things were more positive.
Continue watching on the next episode of the Stay in Your Lane podcast.